Wan 2.2 and Qwen Image, two siblings from the same family of Alibaba AI models. Wan 2.2 promises to be a huge improvement over the previous Wan 2.1 model. It's a video generation model that can also be used to produce surprisingly realistic images. It was trained on a much larger dataset with 65% more images and 83% more videos. They also mentioned that they used a specially curated dataset focusing on lighting, composition and color. It's built with a new architecture called Mixture of Experts. What this means is that generation process is split into two stages. First, the high noise model creates the layout and large color blocks, and then the low noise model refines details. Each of these models has 14 billion parameters. Today, we're going to compare it with Qwen Image, a 20 billion parameter foundation model that is supposed to be especially good at text rendering and prompt following. In their blog, they state that Qwen Image achieves state-of-the-art performance in all public benchmarks. In their tech report, it said that they collected billions of image text pairs for their dataset, with 55% being nature images and 27% design visuals, like posters, user interfaces, and paintings. People make up about 13% of this dataset. One interesting detail about the Qwen Image training process is that instead of just feeding it pictures with short captions, Alibaba's team used a special image captioner with annotation prompts to generate detailed descriptions that include not only what's in the image, but also things like the text, layout, and object relations. On paper, they're both exceptional models, but let's switch to ComfyUI and see what they're really capable of. This is a standard Qwen Image workflow from the ComfyUI website. I'm using the largest BF16 model with the 7 billion text encoder for a fair comparison. I'll be using 50 steps and CFG of 4, the same settings as in Qwen Hugging Face repository example. For Wan 2.2, we'll be using the default ComfyUI template. There is no official image workflow for Wan, so we'll have to modify the video workflow. I'll be using the largest 14 billion FP16 high and low noise models. We'll need to adjust the sampling parameters because I think that 8 is too high for the image. I'll also increase the number of steps to 30. It's probably a little too much, but I'll leave it for a fair comparison. As for the sampler and scheduler, I tried some of the samplers from the REST family, and even though they produce slightly more details, I saw a degradation in prompt adherence. At least for me, the standard combination worked better with complex prompts. There are different ways to split the steps for the high and low noise models, but we will go with the standard split down the middle. I'm setting the number of frames to 1 since we're going to generate images. We can remove the video nodes and an image node for the final result. Now, to make this test more convenient, we can just copy and paste the Qwen workflow from another tab. Let's clear it up a bit. We don't need the latent image and the save image nodes. We're going to reuse them from the Wan workflow. Let's copy the image node and put it next to Wan's. Also, let's connect the latent output to the latent input in the Qwen workflow. This will start the Qwen workflow when the Wan workflow finishes, and we will get an image with exactly the same resolution. Now let's make sure they use the same prompt. You can pick any text node and connect it to both clip nodes. I think that's it, we're good to go. Let's start with a vertical selfie of an Instagram model. Okay, Wan messed up the reflection in the mirror behind the woman, and the Qwen image looks a bit soft. I think this is a well-known Qwen problem where some images may be a bit blurry. But overall, I think that the Qwen model produced a more correct picture than Wan with this prompt. Let's try the next prompt. I'll be using quite detailed prompts throughout this video to fully test prompt adherence of these models. Okay, Qwen almost nailed this picture. It has the proper text on her t-shirt, it has a kiosk with pina colada on it, and she's almost kicking the ball. And Wan struggled with the text both on her t-shirt and on the kiosk. And it also forgot the ball. But the Wan image angle looks more ultra-wide to me. I think we will see this trend in the next test as well. Next, let's generate a stylish photo with a fisheye effect. This is interesting. I wanted to say that Wan messed up the hands and Qwen nailed this prompt, but Qwen actually added a 6th finger. Except for the hands, both produced a fisheye effect and both look quite realistic. I'm sure if you try generating again, they will both look great. Okay, let's try a prompt for an action movie shot with the guy jumping into a helicopter. Here Qwen messed up a hand a bit, and I really like the skin details in the Wan image compared to the more soft Qwen image. Qwen added a building and a helicopter propeller to show that it was indeed a helicopter, so technically it followed the prompt a bit better. The next prompt will be very complex. The models should generate a lot of distinct objects such as fantasy market, pets, text, and 2 characters. In the prompt, I specified that this is a realistic image. Qwen understood it and also handled the text well, but the one model generated an anime image instead. And this is something I have seen multiple times in the past when working with one model. Let's try to improve it by adjusting the negative prompt in the Wan workflow. Now it looks a bit better, but still Wan is heavily leaning towards an anime style, and it couldn't handle the text either. With Qwen, apart from the softness, it looks very good. I really like the background, considering that the nature category, which includes cities, was the largest in the Qwen dataset. Next, we will test whether the models can produce an image with Batman. And here we've got 2 very different images. I mentioned neon lights in the prompt, so I think Qwen did a better job with this one, and the Qwen produced a low angle shot that I asked for in the prompt. The one image also looks great and probably was influenced by a grayish dataset for Batman. I can say that the Batman looks more realistic in one image compared to Qwen. Okay, let's check how the models generate fictional characters. I want to see a warrior that looks like Kratos from God of War striking a big golem. So I'm not sure where he struck him in Wan's image, but overall both images look good. The Qwen image has proper skin color that I specified in the prompt, and the axe looks more realistic. Looks like Wan doesn't have enough knowledge about God of War, so its Kratos looks a bit different despite the description in the prompt, more like the mountain from the Game of Thrones or Powerlifter. Weapons look a bit weird, and it also forgot the white skin. Next up, another quite complex prompt with miniature cats. Lots of details and stylized characters. Here the Qwen model almost nailed it. It produced the correct text and all cats have the same style compared to the Wan image. Interesting that Wan's image doesn't look much more realistic with this prompt compared to Qwen, and it struggled with the text. I think everything in Qwen image looks much more consistent. Next we will generate an anime image. I added some text to this prompt and also the famous Dutch camera angle. I think one should understand it better because they literally mentioned this camera angle in their prompt guidelines. So I can see the angle in the background, but the character remains straight even in Wan's image. Wan couldn't handle the text on this sign and on her book, and Qwen managed to produce the correct text on the sign, but I can see it struggled with the book a little. Both pictures are in the anime style, and Qwen actually added blur to the crowd, as I asked in the prompt. These models can definitely create better anime images than Flux. Let's try another anime image with a cat warrior. I'm not sure if there's too much detail in the one image or if the image came out wrong. Let's try to regenerate. I like the consistency of the Qwen model. With the same prompt but different seed, it looks quite similar to the previous generation. Now both images look good. One model was less reliable, but the image itself ended up very detailed. I would say it looks more interesting than the one on the right. Okay, next I want to see a character sheet with full body views from different sides and with different facial expressions. It's interesting that Qwen generated consistent hair color compared to the one image where some of the headshots have only red hair. The one model managed to produce 6 close-ups as I described in the prompt, while Qwen only generated 5. One interesting fact, when I used a similar prompt before, the word masterpiece had a big impact on the final result. If I remove it, the images become simpler and more boring. This word does not always have the same effect on every prompt though. Okay, for the next test, let's generate a pencil drawing of a zombie. I think both models produce really awesome images. Look at the one image. You can see that this looks like pencil work with tons of details. The Qwen image also looks very detailed, and it followed the prompt a bit better because I asked for a solid dark background. Honestly, I could print out any of these images and be happy with that. To follow up on drawings, let's generate a comic book page with a few panels. As you see, Qwen managed the first panel, which is where the character breaks the wall. In the second panel, she hits the bad robot, and one was actually closer to it. One, as usual, messed up the text and didn't even add it in the third panel. So both models produce good results, but I'm not sure if you can rely on them if you want to create an entire comic page at once. Next, a very complex prompt for a vertical movie poster. I specified that SpongeBob should be at the top of the smartphone, and as you see here, Wan didn't manage to produce the correct text. The actors' names are stuck together while Qwen aligned them correctly at the top, and the date is squeezed in the Wan image. Overall, I think Qwen is the preferable model if you need to work with such images. Qwen is capable of generating such things, which is no surprise because they have similar examples on their blog page. Next, I'll use a prompt for an image where a samurai warrior enters a village with a cheering crowd. Both images have a good composition and look quite similar. I think the Wan image has more details and the style looks more realistic compared to Qwen, which is clearly simpler. Qwen just copy-pasted people in the crowd along the road. The Wan image has some minor artifacts here and there that I think could be fixed with a few more tries, but I'd like to see the Qwen image in a similar style. Next, let's generate a Blade Runner city with some neon signs and lots of text. Again, we can see the weakness of the Wan model. The information age sign is broken, and I think all signs are broken except Alibaba. Surprisingly, Qwen also couldn't handle most of the text. The OpenAI and DeepMind signs are incorrect. I expected Qwen to nail this prompt, but it didn't for some reason. Okay, for the final test, let's generate a beautiful house straight from the fairy tale. You can clearly see that Wan produced a much more realistic image. It doesn't look like a fairy tale, but it has lots of details and feels like a real photo, especially compared to Qwen, which has this soft blur that gives you the feeling that you're looking at a miniature photo. It worked well with the cats, but here I would say that Wan did a better job. I think this is enough for this comparison. Both models are exceptional. Wan 2.2 produces more realistic images, and it can be good as an additional step in your workflow to make an image look like a real photo. And Qwen is much more reliable and better follows the prompt, but it has this blurry effect that may require an additional step or better prompt adjusting to get rid of. If I had to choose between the two, I would go with Qwen for image generation. It's just a bit more reliable, which in my opinion is the most important thing if you're using it for work or something serious. While Wan is a great model, it really shines with video and not so much with image generation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.